Crimson Lizard. This is the third King Crimson record. If you talk to somebody who's really obsessed with progressive music, they will like this record a lot. If you talk to pretty much everybody else, they'll say it's a piece of shit. I like progressive music, so I like it. Before we go into the music, let me just show you the art here. Pretty beautiful. If you go deep into the art itself, it's just full of so much detail. And the thing is, in this era of King Crimson, the second, the third record, the artist, whoever drew it, usually would take inspiration from the songs and do these. So the first song is called Circus, and you can see that it's kind of like a circus. The first song, in my opinion, is so good that the rest of the record is kind of a disappointment. The first side has 4 songs, and the side 2 is basically just one song that has different sections. So after the first song in the first side, Circus, you have Indoor Games, Happy Family, which is about the Beatles actually, Lady of the Dancing Water, and those 3 songs I will never defend. I mean, they're not bad songs, they're okay songs. It's clear that the inspiration was not there as much. Happy Family, which is about the Beatles, you can see the little drawing of the Beatles there. Anyways, the first song and the last song being the second side of this record, are really great. The second song, the first part, I think it's called Prince Rupert Awakes, is sung by Jan Anderson, he's the singer of Yes. If you ever thought about how the singer of Yes would sound like singing a King Crimson song, you have it right here. Robert Fripp is one of my most important guitar inspirations, and there's something that he does with the acoustic guitar in that first song that's still impressive to me. Like, anytime I hear it, it's something that I just never heard anybody else do, and the closest would be like flamenco guitars. This record came out on EG. As a label, I don't know much about EG, except that King Crimson and Eno were in the year is 1970, which is the year after the first record came out, which is 69. So in 2 years, King Crimson released 3 records, and that was a standard in those times. Like, you would release a record every 6 months, clockwork. I got into King Crimson because I was just bored with music. New music was giving me at that time. At that time was the infamous new metal era. I was done with that, and slowly I was getting into Melvin's, Faith No More, all the Patton bands, John Zorn stuff. And somewhere there, I read about King Crimson, and I really don't remember exactly what I read. But I do remember, I have a Guitar World magazine that basically had a special about 1969. I think 1969 is the best year in music. That's peak rock, because that's the moment when rock was the most popular, the most important, the most influential, and the most forward-thinking music. And in that magazine, I saw that picture of the cover of In the Court of King Crimson, and that face. Just anybody that sees that face immediately needs to listen to this record, you know. So I think it was because of that magazine that I went online and started scouring. So that's how I discovered or got into King Crimson. Yeah. Syd Barrett, Opel. This is a collection of basically alternate takes, some B-sides of the 2 Barrett records. I found this version, which is a bit different. It's the simply vinyl version, and it has a few extra tracks. That's why it's a double record. Usually this is a single record, so it just has extra takes of Jiggle On. It's really interesting when you talk to people who have heard of him but have not really experienced his solo stuff, or maybe not even the Pink Floyd stuff he did. It took me a while to get to Syd Barrett, because Pink Floyd is not known as, Piper at the Gates of Dawn, I should say. It's not known as like one of the classic, like up front, like Rolling Stone #1, even though it should be. So it's interesting how, in my case as well, it's just like you go Dark Side of the Moon, The Wall, Wish You Were Here, and then you start going back, and at some point you're like, oh, there was this guy who did all of this music for Pink Floyd, and he's the reason why they, and when I say they, probably I should say Roger Waters, because like the lyrics that Roger Waters recorded for Dark Side of the Moon, Wish You Were Here, The Wall, are basically based on what happened with, his experience with Syd Barrett. So Syd Barrett was the leader of Pink Floyd for the first few years of their lives, probably 64, 65 to 68, which is Social for Real Secrets, and at that point, he just couldn't perform live. There's rumors that people were dosing him with acid without him knowing. You know, it's like he was just drinking a soda or tea or coffee, and somebody would just, you know, drop some acid, and he would just start tripping. So at some point it triggered his schizophrenia. It was really hard to record Barrett. He just would never perform the same song the same. You know, like, it's usually when you're tracking a record, you're trying to get a performance, but at the same time you're not deviating too much from your chords, your riffs, your tempo. And Barrett just did not care about that. Every time he played, something would change the song so drastically that the background performers just couldn't keep on. So it was really hard to track him. So usually it would just be him with an acoustic, and then they would track everybody on top of him. So these tracks are incredible because you hear the stuff that they didn't pick, but then you can hear the mistakes, but then you understand the improvisational way that he could just bring rhythms back. Sometimes as a musician, I would say, I hear the songs and I can hear them falling apart, and then suddenly they build themselves back up again without falling apart. And for me, that's one of the most incredible things about music. Like, when I hear Keith Richards as a guitarist, he's playing almost fucking up. He's like kind of like a drunk dude who's like almost fucking up but never fucking up. It's like he's on that edge, but he's never doing that. And that's Syd Barrett's whole musical output. That's what robots will never be able to do.